Hello, I'm NormBo Graham. Let's look at let's say we wanted to start a programming project, and let's say we picked a good sized project to start with. Let's create our own social media website. So, what is involved in that? What are some of the approaches we might take? Uh, let's do a general overview of what direction you're going, and then we'll get into more details from there after the overview. So, here I have Google. Let's see, let's go to the website. Um, I've already picked a name. I've gone out and bought the website. What we're doing now is we're just showing an overview. We're not going to the default page. This is all in development. This is all for YouTube right now. So there's an initial page, a default page, an index page, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes it's called the splash page. I'm going to go there. What you'll see over here is a fave icon. I did actually create a fave icon using some of the tools. Basically, you can start with Paint and then convert your picture into a fave icon. So let's go ahead and go there. Okay, so uh, there's HTML that's delivered, there's CSS, there can be some communication back to the server. What I decided is to uniformly create this like a demo is that we'd have a picture, we'd put these into files and have a uniform way of displaying them. So obviously, you're going to have a login page where you'd either log in or sign up, or you'd have to do something because you forgot your password. There has to be some way of retrieving that. So we put that in too. Now, in order to sign up, you're going to create a username, all of that. But I've already done that. Let's go ahead and log in. So we'll see this user. Oops. We're not administrating. I'm just using this as a regular user, just for demo purposes. Okay, so I've pressed a login button. What's going to happen now is it's a communication with the server. It's gone and it's validated my login, and it said, hey, it's good. And so we've gone to the second page, the second sort of splash page. Now, that spool down there, right there, is just debugging information. Don't panic about that. Notice that there's this new subdirectory I'm using and all of that. That's for like error messages and stuff for myself. If I were to actually go look and see what error messages were involved in the execution of the code on the server, it would be in that subdirectory. But getting back, okay, so here we have two options. I'm going to go to the feed, or I'm going to manage news feeds. So I'm going to add new news feeds. Now I can also subscribe to other people's feeds. So that would either be done through go to my feeds and then I could add it from there, or I could add another button, whatever. So anyway, assuming that we went to go see the news feeds. Now, what's happened here is that it's gone to the database and it said for all the feeds that he has subscribed to, what are the new messages he has not seen? And then we're going to go from there and move and display them. So these are this is in a rough state right now. Instead of one is my user ID, I'm starting from message 0. Right here is a date of the feed, date timestamp. There's a feed 17. Normally, I guess I'd put a feed name there. No big deal. The message on that feed coming back would be welcome 17. So there was an SQL query involved, and that was the first one that came back that I haven't seen. And this is all that. Now, of course, this needs to be prettied up, but we're sort of in an agile state now where we're just going out, getting this new information and displaying it. That's all. And then we have these buttons, whatever buttons we want to put, thumbs up, thumbs down, like, dislike, love, whatever. There are all kinds of buttons. I just threw some up here, you know, just because I could. Clown, and then there are other things we may want to do. We may want to block a user. We may want to report this feed item. And these are the sort of things we'd need to do. Now, here we could also add another element to our feed. And anybody who's subscribing to our feed would see it. I did not put it on here. I'm sorry, that's forgotten. Let's go back. And then, but we captured the data from other people's feed. Okay, so what about, okay, you notice how, let's say, Facebook has something called continuous scroll. So either you love it or you hate it. I'm not a big fan. But with continuous scroll is that when you get to the end of your messages, then you're going to display more advertisement contents. You're actually going to back up and display the messages again. You're going to stop people from ever leaving. Let's take a different approach here and let's just show you the new messages. And then at the end of the messages, we'll have an end of message and be done with it. And, so it like email, you could literally get to the end of all your new news feeds data or whatever anyone else has fed into the system. All right, now that was pretty much a fast introduction to my logic. Now let's back up and let's look at a little bit of how I got there. So you notice that this armadillo is the same across all the pages. That's because on the server, it's the style, this format is in a separate file. And I could change that. And I have, just flipping it out. I can view the page source from here. So okay, so I have from here, there's an icon, obviously. So that's your fave icon. That's what you're seeing up here, this N with the red and the green. Or is that blue? Red and blue. I created that. Then I have a link to my styles, uh, some description, whatever, some comment to the authors, even who a company owned it or what have you, if you wanted to go in that direction. Then as far as the contents of this page go, I do have 3 buttons. I have a login. So there's a login. So if you were to actually click on login, then you'd be pulling up this page. You'd be jumping over there. And the same would be for sign up and sign up and forgot password, etc. Yeah, that's enough of that. Okay. So moving along, Let's go ahead and cancel that out. So what is going on with some of this? Well, I could use at the server, I'm going to use a tool called cPanel. So with cPanel, I can go to the file manager and I can go to the first page and let's see what is going on there. So you're not going to see much because I'm actually just calling other pages. Norm Splash 2. So, HTML is like a hierarchy, but and PHP allows me to use a hierarchy format too to deliver that, in that I'm going to read other files and echo them back for the client. The client would be the user using the social media. The server is actually where this is executing, where your PHP code is executing. So from there, I'm getting file contents of, header one. I'm getting the contents of my header.php, and I'm getting the contents of body splash. So I imagine that header one is actually validating. So let's go through and let's see what else we got. So here we go. We logged in. So when we clicked log in, we also got this other page and it went through that code, that PHP code, and then it generated this output that we see now, which is displayed visually. But there's also a text. So if we went to the page source, we would see the HTML it gave back to us, and there's a title to the page. There's some script. This would be JavaScript. It's going to validate our input just because you don't want. It's also going to be validated at the server, but you don't want to even make the request unless it's gone through a minimum validation. Then you're obviously going to have the fave icon. Again, this is coming from the same file we're sharing. So, and some content, again, some meta reference to authors. This is just HTML. And then there's some display here. So, and then when we actually log in, we're going to actually go through this other PHP function. We're also going to validate the form, and we're going to post the result. So the validate form up here is our function. So this is all how HTML and JavaScript works. It's nothing too radical here. Again, we're just in demo mode. So then we came to this other page, this intermediate page, because we didn't know if you want to go to your feed or if you want to manage your feed or if you want to add other things. But we could literally skip right over this, or even weirder, we could have this page, then notify the server, send us the new information. And there might be some benefit to that. And again, spool is there just as debugging information. That's telling me there's no old history. But anyway, so then go to the feeds, there's an event. Now, what happened here is that it did a database query. Now, the database server would be MySQL. Again, this up here is pulled from the same file, and these are all as I described before, here's a message we haven't seen yet. Here's a second message, and again, they're coming at us. Now, after we're done here, we could actually update that reference to the last, and then we wouldn't see them again. That, of course, would be the end goal here, because you don't want to. We're not creating endless scroll here. There has to be an end to this. Let's just see the new feeds and be done with it. And then, so these other buttons are actually Ajax. So there's some communication with the server, but there's also, they're turning the group on and off. So I can't like and unlike or thumbs up and thumbs down the same content. I can only do one. So there's that. Now these icons here, these buttons, are part of a group, and then that group is turned, it was a radio button action, meaning only one is visible at the same time. And so you have some logic here, some JavaScript to do that. You have some value settings. There's an initial value, so it'll know if it's been clicked. Then, of course, we need some reference to send back to the server. All of this is generated at the server side from the PHP code. So there you go. So we have multiple buttons. We have the same buttons. There's a dislike in this group, and there's a dislike in this group. And so it's able to figure out which group to turn on and off for the radio button action. And it also has to communicate with the server. Okay. That functionality is in another file right now. So it's not sending that back to the server right now. But we can do that. Okay, so getting back. So these are the things we need to keep going on. Now, if you were to give the wrong password, of course, you'd need some error message coming back. You'd also need some PHP code to keep track of number of bad password attempts, stuff like that. Also, there's a login. Now, with that login, we might actually generate a session variable, and then we could use the session variable in our code later if we wanted to keep track of where it's coming from, stuff like that. So I could create variables for that and values for that. So there's a particular session ID, or so then other people can't just randomly jump in and try to get our information. You'd have to go through the login process yourself and subscribe to those feeds. Anyway, then there's obviously all sorts of other things you could add. Of course, the next thing to add is probably pictures. So from there, you need to upload your graphics. That's all. It's no big deal. So when you add a new feed element, you would actually do that. So So anyway, there's the brief introduction as to how we could actually create our own social media platform that would be different and unique in that it doesn't have continuous scrolling. It doesn't it allows you to get to the end of all your new messages. You could add whatever theme you wanted, whatever censorship you wanted. You could allow people to select their own censors. Anyway, which is something some people want, I guess. All right, so that was the introduction. That's that's vaguely how a social media website would work, how this data feed works for people who are in the share situation. And when it's corporate, there's a different name for it. So when in social media, we tend to say you're not corporate, right? But if you were in a corporate situation, this code is pretty much the same structure as when multiple companies are trying to communicate. It's not called share in that respect. It's not called social media. It's called share partners. So the terminology changes, but the functionality is still the same. One of the additions to corporate share partners is that they have more integrity in there and more security against showing you something you're not supposed to see. It's not something you've subscribed to, it's not something you're allowed to see. So, a share partner for a corporation would be like a bank. A bank can't share a picture of a check with people who aren't allowed to see it. So, that's the difference between social media versus corporate share partners. Uh, but technically, they're both the same. I mean, at the lowest level, they're still the same. And sometimes you can trip up and use the wrong terminology. Anyway, that was a brief introduction. We can go into more details. All right. And some of the technology is HTML, CSS, JavaScript, certainly Ajax. Certainly, you're going to need something on the server side. It's called CGI, Common Gateway Interface. So here, as you saw, I use PHP. I've also used straight C and C++. You can deliver web pages faster using C and C++. As a general rule, though, it's just rarely ever needed. Something like eBay certainly uses C and C++. But anyway, all right. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe.